afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here for our inaugural Teacher Impact Conversations. Thank you for the district office staff who are here to support, and a special thank you to our winning schools so far, Anderson Elementary. So thank you both for being here. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'd like to just go over the purpose for our conversation today. We're going to start by just talking about our why, essentially the desired outcomes when our students leave our district at level of readiness. We're also going to share with you the current achievement levels based on DPI Data as well as the Georgia Milestone Assessment. And then finally, we'll end by discussing impact. And then educators, you will have a formula that you can use to measure the impact that you're having on student learning. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to call up our superintendent, Dr. Morcease Beasley.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Hello, everybody. Boy, it sounds like 1,000 claps going on here. It's good to see all of you. I know it's been a long day, and others, we had only a few to sign up. For those of you that are here, thank you for coming, and I hope today will be beneficial for you. This is our first, as Dr. Lee mentioned, our first effort in these type of impact conversations, but I think we'll do more as time goes on, and so I'm sure the right timing, right incentives, etc., will get more teachers and others to participate. So as Dr. Lee already shared the why, it's just so important that we understand the impact that we're having on our students every day. Even today, we had a very good conversation about the data, and we were looking at the schools, the similarities and the differences. We looked at some schools that did double-digit gains and some schools did double-digit decreases, and we were just trying to figure out, okay, why did most schools improve but then a few did not improve? Or if they did not improve, why did some of them slip maybe 1 point, but some slipped 10, 11, 12, or 22 points? And so those are the type of conversations that we continue to have with principals and others. And we thought we'd have these conversations with you. And so always as a reminder, our board has approved our new strategic goals, our vision, our mission. And I just want to remind everyone, it's very clearly stated that our goal is to basically prepare all of our students by being a high-performing school district. Our mission is clear: to empower our students to achieve their personal goals and academic goals. We have our core beliefs, which are very, very important. These are the things that drive and motivate us. When we make decisions with these things in mind. In summary, the core beliefs speak to the students being the center of everything that we do in our school system. And then, of course, we have our 5 strategic goals. And I won't read them to you because if you've been around, you've seen them. But the first one is primarily the one that we're talking about today, to increase academic achievement. And then, of course, that fourth one is to provide high-quality support services to our students. And those two are very much related to one another. But I just want all of us to think about, in order to achieve higher performance, we've got to ensure that the systems, the processes, the people, the protocols, all of those things are geared toward high performance. Our strategic plan is out there for you to see. You should notice, if you've not looked at it already, please, I encourage you to go out to the website and take a look. If you go to the website on the left side, there are links. One of the first links would be the Advanced Ed Strategic Plan link. It will take you through 2 clicks straight to the strategic plan. Within the strategic plan, there are performance objectives. So we have the 5 goals, and then we have performance objectives. And the objectives speak to the achievement levels, the grad rate, the attendance, and discipline improvements that we want to see district-wide over a 5-year period, realizing that as we build momentum from year to year, we should see better increases, improvements from year to year. So really today is about that, and so I'm going to let the other team members are going to come and share, and then I'll kind of conclude by talking about teacher impact, efficacy, effect, etc. on our learning outcomes. At this time, we're going to introduce Dr. Simpson, which is our Deputy Superintendent, who is our Deputy Superintendent for School Leadership and Improvement. Let's give him a hand every time.
I'm going to be very brief. I found out about 2 months ago from Dr. Lee that I could not read in the 4th grade. Now, I'm going somewhere with that, no. So what I was sharing with her was this experience, and it all ties in to the importance of reading. So it was important for me as a 4th grader in Ms. Banks's class that when she called on us to read out loud, that I enunciate all the words correctly. Because back then, if you didn't do it, you had students in the class that would laugh at you. So my focus was on making sure that I enunciated the words so that I couldn't be laughed at because it was a girl sitting next to me that I liked. Okay? So I became very, very fluent in reading aloud. But after I read aloud, I had to go back and read it again because I wasn't reading for understanding or comprehension. Well, you know, continued on. I mean, that was the practice from 4th grade to 8th grade to high school and even to college. So I never developed the discipline or the skill to read in depth. And then I was faced with, in my first college class from the president of West Georgia, Dr. Maurice Townsend, after the lecture for 50 minutes, he said, okay, your homework assignment is to read chapter 1. The first thing that I did was look to see how many pages were in chapter 1. And it was 50. And in my mind, I said, I'm not going to be able to do that. But I wanted to. So guess what I did? I went home, I went back to my room, and I tried to read the pages, the 50 pages. I got to page 3, and I stopped. Because I had never read 10 pages or more. I mean, I'm talking about ever in high school. I never read more than 10 pages in a day. So that was a struggle for me in college. It was a major struggle and a hurdle for me because I had to develop this discipline and this skill to read in depth. And what ended up happening is that I always had to read and reread. So that personal experience of mine, I've always shared with classroom teachers from when I was even in the classroom in the schoolhouse. As an assistant principal, I always shared that experience because I wanted the teachers to know and understand how important reading is. And that we make sure that we practice it enough so that our children will understand that this skill and this discipline will help to better their chances of matriculating through someone's college or university. That personal experiences that I've had, many people, many teachers have had that similar experience. The learning curve from high school to college, if you weren't exposed to gifted, honors, AP, IB like me, was the depth of reading that you experienced or writing. And then many of us failed or flunked out of school because of that. So if you can't take back anything, if that personal experience is yours, or you know if there's some other colleagues in your school, the reading is so very, very important. You know, a lot of people are saying now, there's some research out there that said that they're basing the number of prison beds they're building on the third grade reading level. That's not true. That is not true. That's not what it is. However, because I am a former corrections officer and worked in maximum security prisons for 4.5 years, the one thing that I do know that's a fact because of what I saw is that 50% of the inmates in the jails and the prisons that I worked in were functionally illiterate. They could not read, so it all goes back to that. So whatever personal experience that you had, if it's impacted or affected you negatively, we're trying to create a sense of urgency where we want people to understand it from a moral perspective, that it's a responsibility that we instill and teach this skill and this discipline to our children because of the impact. And that's what Dr. Beasley is going to share with you all later, that he's going to allow for you to be able to take back to your schools how you can calculate the impact of what it's going to have on a child's life. And that's critical. That's because if we do wrong by them, if we do a disservice to them, it's going to have an impact on their lives, negatively, hopefully positively. So that's what this is all about. That's what the sense of urgency is all about. So despite the fact that it's just 3, 4 of you here, it doesn't matter. It's the message that we want you to be able to take back to your school, to your colleagues, and share with them. They may be teachers outside of Clayton, just that you know of. This is critical for us as a society. But it's a sense of urgency. It's truly, as Mike Smoker said in the book Results Now, the one thing that's guaranteed to change the trajectory of a child's life is authentic literacy. Reading, writing, and speaking. That's the number one indicator that can change their trajectory, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what their living conditions are. That's the number one indicator that can change their life, just drastically. So I just wanted to be brief and share that with you. And hopefully you all come back out to the next one, which is Wednesday, or tell some other people they need to get here. Or send the message out so loud and so wide that they'll come and it'll be no empty seats in here. So thanks for coming, as Dr. Beasley said. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley, as well as Dr. Simpson. I heard Dr. Simpson mention 3 practices or behaviors, just building skill, building discipline, and the need for practice. And so the foundational grade levels, it's just so critical. It's just like with anything in life. The foundation, if it's strong, it gives you something solid upon which you can build. So at this time, I just want to share with everyone where our students, how they're performing once they leave that K1 and 2 level. So from 3rd grade up to high school, I would like to take you on a walk with how our students are performing. And you will notice that there are successes, but there are areas where we can improve to ensure greater outcomes for our students. So here I have some facts just about early literacy. Take a moment to read over those. So essentially, those findings, those research-based findings, speak to the critical nature of making sure that our students are reading in the early formative years. So the 2 words that come to mind, readiness and automaticity. If our students, when they leave K1 and 2 and they're entering 3rd grade, there's some assumptions about what 8-year-olds can do. Essentially, at that point, teachers are assuming students can get a grade level book and read with accuracy, read for understanding. There are also some assumptions that there's automatic ability with decoding an unknown word. However, when our students are still struggling with those skills, they become barriers to understanding and barriers for our students being able to display their comprehension of text. And so, readiness and automaticity. Just looking at a sample grade 3 passage, what do you notice? The big transition from what we probably see K1 and 2 to this being a beginning of the year expectation. The text is longer, more dense, vocabulary, multi-syllabic words. If you had an opportunity to read the questions, you would notice that they push students to more inferencing and beyond surface level. And so in our social studies and science classrooms, as well as in the other classrooms, we're expecting students to be able to tackle this because they have reading skills. Unit 1, just in grade 3, look at the terms students should know. I'm just going to read the Tier 2 list. Students should understand what it means to analyze, collaborate, determine, evaluate. These are just more advanced terminology that we want our students to be able to understand and be able to read with fluency. And this is the Unit 1 Grade 3 writing task. So students have to be able to read 3 passages and then synthesize that into one response. The only reason I'm sharing it is because it's sort of beginning with the end in mind. So if our students who are entering 3rd grade have to have these skills, they must be readers. And they must have those initial writing skills that allow them to operate more fluently. So our current reality, when we look at our Georgia milestones data for grade 3 through high school, on average, we have about 25% of our students proficient and distinguished across the board, across all content areas. That's on average. So the students who have the skills early, they tend to sustain those skills throughout high school and beyond. But this is our goal. By school year 2023, we want at least 80% of our students proficient or distinguished, and they certainly can be at that level with the right practices, the right consistency, the right expectations and beliefs for our students. And the goal for reading is beyond 80%. What percent of students can read if given solid instruction based on research? Does anyone know the percent of students who can read on grade level if given the right instruction by the end of first grade? What percent? At minimum, 95% can be at level. So as a result, that's our goal. By 2023, 95% of our students reading on or above grade level. So even in KM1, when we're getting the DIBELS data back and we're looking at it, our goal should be how close are we to 95% of those students reading on or above grade level. And we know it's not easy. We know it's complex work. So as I look at colleagues, educators, we're not underestimating the challenges that will take. But again, with the right practices. So that's why Dr. Beasley is going to share how do we calculate impact so that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. So based on the Georgia milestones, so the Georgia milestones assessment, they measure the Georgia standards of excellence for the core content areas. And so this table, it displays 4 years of performance data for ELA and mathematics, but you also see how we compare with our neighboring districts, the metro Atlanta districts such as DeKalb, Fulton, Cobb, Gwinnett, Marietta City, some other districts. So you see how the metro RESA districts are performing as well as Georgia. And so based on the data from this past school year, grades 3, 4, and 5 did show incremental gains. But do you still see that average of about 25% proficient or distinguished? That means 3/4 are not. And also we see the slight gap between our district and the RESA and Georgia. And then in mathematics, we had growth in grade 3, 4, and 7. Social studies and science, grades 5 and 8. We saw growth in grade 8 science. And then for social studies, we saw growth in both grades 5 and 8. And so again, we have a portion of kids, you all, who have the automaticity and the readiness to be a part of the learning. But we have quite a few who are not. And so we certainly know, as well as research supports, when our kids are readers early on, they're better positioned and postured for learning beyond. And this is the high school data. So in high school, there are 8 main end of course assessments. And so here you can see this past school year, we saw gains in grade 9 literature, geometry, physical science, and economics. And then you can see again the comparison with the Metro RESA as well as the state. So we want to exceed the state in the metro area performance. We certainly want to do that. And so as we look at these numbers and at the school level, you have the faces behind the numbers. Right now, you know which students are, where they fall in their reading skills, and Vic is going to go over that based on the DIBELS data. You have that information. And just very quickly, I would like to share with you the reading data and the writing data. So starting with the grade 3 Georgia milestones, they measure Lexile levels, which is students' ability to read a grade level text. Okay, so a student, we as readers have Lexile levels, and a text has a Lexile level. So for grade 3, we see based on the end of grade 3, which are our current 4th graders, 57% of those students were on or above grade level in their reading skills. And essentially that means that they can read a grade level text with at least 75% accuracy. So those are our current fourth graders. And so again, it varies at each school, but on average, 57%. And what we noticed in looking at the end of year DIBELS data for grade 2, it mirrors this. So the third grade and on, they're trying diligently to close those gaps, but we're not seeing as many gains as we would like to see in reading performance. And so if we solidify the reading performance, again, students are better prepared across the academic program to be thinkers, to express themselves, to be problem solvers, all those other complex skills that are essential. And then finally, the writing data. So on the Georgia milestone, students have 2 written responses in ELA, and they also have written responses in mathematics. For the data I have up here, I'm showing you the essay response to the left where there's this circle, and I'm sure that's another type of circle. And to the far right, we have the narrative written response. But let's just look at grade 3. Grade 3, at the end of grade 3, 5% of third graders demonstrated proficiency or greater in writing, 5%. And then on the narrative, the story they had to write, 5% demonstrated proficiency. So going back to those terms of readiness and automaticity, questions we can ask ourselves just in our schools and in our classrooms: how much are students required to read, and how much are they required to write and express themselves through written expression? And writing is the evidence of learning, and that's why we prioritize that across the program. So in science, they should be writing their claims with their evidence. In social studies, they should be completing those document-based questions. In language arts and math, they should be justifying and including written responses. So they have to read and think and write regularly. And this is just a picture of what happens when we leave the elementary level and even go on to middle and high school. You have a variety of reading levels that the teachers are having to try to address. And that's why we have readiness tools to assist. But the goal is to have more and more students leaving each grade level on level, 95% in reading, 80% in proficiency and distinguished on the Georgia milestones. So at this time, I would like to call Vic Betford, our language arts coordinator for K-5, to just speak to us about reading. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So my section is titled, What Does It Mean to Be a Reader? And so I want to start off for just a minute in taking a look at our end-of-year DIBELS data from last year. So this is 17-18, and I'm sure most of you have seen this report before. This is the DIBELS Effectiveness Report, and what it shows us is how well we moved students within each of the instructional categories. So if you look to the far right, this is the above benchmark category right here, the blue. Ideally, those students who are above benchmark at the beginning of the year should remain above benchmark at the end of the year. So in all reality, this should remain 100% all the way down, and you can see that it has not. If we look down here at our well below benchmark category, what you should see as the year progresses from BOY to EOY is that the red should diminish. And you see that in kindergarten, we are moving students. You can see that the red has diminished greatly. Even in our below benchmark category, we moved a great deal of students up to benchmark as well as above benchmark. The problem that's occurring is that we are not moving students in first, second, and third grade. So what's happening is kindergarten is getting them prepared, and then something's happening as they move forward. And we're not moving them as easily as we are in kindergarten. So to look at first grade right now, at the end of the year, 70% of these students who were well below benchmark at the beginning remained well below benchmark at the end. And these first graders right here are now sitting in second grade classrooms. Same thing if we look at second grade students. 81% of those students remained in the well below benchmark category from beginning to end, and now they're sitting in third grade classrooms, and you can see how that just, the domino effect occurs there. So what does it mean to be a reader? A reader is someone who discovers a passion for reading with every book they pick up. This does not mean that every book must be liked. Instead, it means that every book reveals something about the process of reading, or, more spectacularly, the reader, him or herself. So then the question becomes, what does it take to develop a reader? Okay, so I want to take a minute on this slide and just give you a little bit of the research, give you a little bit of the science behind the brain and the way it works with reading. And we all know that when we are born, when we come into this world, we are born with the innate ability to speak, to have language. All we have to do is just spend time around others who speak and carry on conversation, and we learn how to talk. Those of you that have your own children or children in your classroom, you know from the time they're born, they have language, even if it's just babbling to begin with, but the more they are around people who speak, they eventually learn how to speak. It's not something necessarily that has to be taught explicitly. We're able to speak because we are around other people who speak. We're also born with the visual part of our brain. The part of our brain that allows us to see shapes and objects and places and faces. And you see that in babies all the time. People they come in contact with all the time recognize them. The baby recognizes whoever that is. They may not be able to talk or call their name, but they know that they've seen that face. So again, that's something that we're born with the innate ability to do. What we are not born with the innate ability to do, however, is to read. We're not born knowing how to read. Our brain has to be wired to learn how to read, meaning that is something that has to be explicitly and systematically taught to us in order for us to understand it. I'm not going to learn how to read just by sitting next to someone who is reading. I learn how to comprehend and understand perhaps by listening to someone read, but I'm not going to read myself just by listening to someone. Someone has to sit down and explicitly and systematically teach me so that my brain now becomes wired to learn how to read. It's just like when you're building a house, and in order for you to have electricity in your house, you have to have wiring that goes through your house in order for you to be able to turn on the electricity. If the wiring is not done correctly, or if there's something missing, then your electricity is not going to work. So in K1 and 2 particularly, we have to work at wiring our students' brains to learn how to read. And if they're missing a wire or something is not firing correctly, then they're going to struggle. So one of the things that research shows us is the simple view of reading. And it is a very simple graphic to look at. Basically, the simple view of reading answers this question. When you are presented with a passage of text, how do you get meaning from it? Okay, that's twofold. One, I first have to be able to decode the text. So now that I can decode the text, now that I can call the words, I also have to now understand those words that I've just decoded. You heard Dr. Simpson say that basically he could decode and call the words, but there were times when he struggled with the second piece of the equation, and that was the comprehension of the language. So without both, then we're not truly developing a reader who is able to gain meaning from anything that he or she picks up. So to kind of illustrate that, if you can't decode the symbols in a sentence, and that is what K1 and 2 students, particularly kindergarten at the beginning of the year, they're looking at these letters and these sentences and these words, they're just symbols to them. It doesn't mean a whole lot to them yet. But if I can't decode the symbols in a sentence, then I can't read it, even if I know the language it's written in. You may have a kindergartner who can say, yes, this is the English language, but if I don't understand the symbols and I don't know how to unlock the meaning of the symbols, I'm not going to be able to read the sentence. So take just a minute and look at this sentence up here, and there's a key under there, and see if you can decode this sentence. I know it may be a little hard to see. Anybody have any ideas? You want me to alleviate the stress and give you the answer? The answer is Kit ran and hid. Now, one of the keys to being able to decode this sentence, notice what's at the very beginning of the sentence. Period. Meaning, in this language, how do they read? From right to left.
I thought that was just a goddamn.
So if I had told you from the beginning, perhaps, that as you decode the sentence, make sure you read from right to left, it might have made it a little bit easier. That's a basic print concept. That's part of what kindergarten teachers teach students, is that in the English language, we read from left to right. That's essential for them to understand, because if we don't teach them that, then they might be trying to read from right to left. So, what does all this mean for teaching and learning to read? On average, it takes a child 2 to 3 years to learn to decode English. English is the hardest alphabetic writing system in the world. Why? Because we have 26 letters and 44 sounds for those 26 letters. Most other languages have 1 letter, 1 sound. Not us. Okay?
Is that regardless of grade level?
Yes. There are 44 phonemes in the English language, period.
No, I'm asking, does it take 2 to 3 years for any child, elementary, middle, to learn to decode English?
Yeah, you could substitute the word child for, if you have somebody who's coming in that does not know how to read at all, even if they're an adult, then yes, it's going to take about the same amount of time. Yes. So all of this is to say that there are no shortcuts. Okay? Because if you remember, we talked about wiring the brain. If we go back to the house with the faulty wiring, if you have an electrician who comes in and takes shortcuts with putting your wires in, you're going to have problems with your power. So if we try to take shortcuts when it comes to teaching those foundational skills to our younger students, then they're going to have some faulty wiring. Again, they can't just learn to recognize every word on sight. That's only going to get you so far. Because what happens is, first of all, there are too many words to be able to do that with. Second of all, you're not able to, if all I've done is memorize some words, then when it comes to these 2 words right here, I don't even know how to attack those to figure out what they say. Can anybody read this first word? Okay, Brobdingnan. What's the second word? How do you know what those words say? Because you've probably never seen these. These are made up words. Say that again.
Well, they're from Gulliver's Travels.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Right. But how else are you able to read these? Right, you have the decoding skills, but if all I've done is just memorize some words, then I don't have any skills to attack these unknown words. And this is what students see. The older they get, the more they matriculate up. So again, as a muscle, your brain grows with practice. Think about anything that you learn to do. People who are expert pianists, who play the piano, they only become expert and get better at playing the piano because they practice. You don't get better at playing the piano by sitting next to someone. When I was younger, I took piano lessons. I thought if all I did was sit next to my teacher, I would get better because I didn't practice. Therefore, I never became an expert. Same thing with tennis or any other sport. You have to have that practice. It's not just enough. You can teach me how to play tennis. You can give me the skills. But if I'm also not given the opportunity to practice those skills, then my brain is not going to become wired for that. So there has to be deliberate, intentional, focused, targeted practice. So not just giving students the skills, but giving them the opportunity to practice those skills as well. And so I will just kind of sum up my portion. I know it's a little hard to see this piece, but very often we, as part of our standard homework in elementary, we tell students you need to read 20 minutes a night. But have you ever stopped to think about why you're telling them to read 20 minutes a night? Because it's important. There is a rationale behind that. Because essentially, if I have student A who reads 20 minutes a night, 5 days a week, then I have student B who only reads 4 minutes a night, or not at all. By the time they matriculate all the way to the end of 2nd grade, if I'm student A and I've read my 20 minutes a night every night, from kindergarten all the way to the end of 6th grade, then I will have read an equivalent of 60 days. Versus the other student who has not will have only read an equivalent of 12 days. So then the questions become, which child will read better? Which child will know more? Which child will write better, have a better vocabulary, be more successful in school and in life? So this is why we assign that 20 minutes of reading a night. Not just because it's something we've always done, but because there's a reason for it. The more you read, the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. So, schools that deliver the strongest results do a few things. One, they start early in kindergarten. There's a strong emphasis placed on kindergarten. They surround kids with books. And that's part of the 20 minutes a night of reading, is surrounding them with books so that not only are they learning how to read, but they're also developing that love of reading. And so the more you can expose them to books, the better, because reading volume is just as important as anything else. And measuring student progress. Okay? That progress monitoring piece, measuring whether the interventions and the things you have in place are making the impact that you want them to make. If they're not, are you making changes? Okay, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Lee.
Wasn't the slide with the international alphabet eye-opening? Because we were trying to match the symbol with the sound, and notice we weren't as automatic with it. So I think that was an excellent illustration of how students can become frustrated or disengaged if the entire classroom and text reflects those letters and they haven't learned the sounds and how to read. So thank you, Vic, for doing an excellent job of going through that. So after following me, Dr. Beasley is going to show you how to calculate the impact of instructional practices. Now, those of you who are here, and this is usually the case, you're probably aware just in general of best practices, because you've gone beyond your work day and you've chosen to be here. So there's probably something about what you're already doing that's effective. But as Dr. Simpson mentioned, your role will be to go back and share, right, with others. And so I want to share with you what John Hattie and a team of researchers have found to be the top practices that contribute to student learning and student growth. So at this point, they've studied over 500 million students and copious instructional practices. So when I show you the effect size, a 0.40 is equivalent to at least 1 year of growth. So I want you to look at these practices. And as you think about your planning each day and your instructional delivery, how frequently are we embedding these practices? And so I just starred a few. The first one deals with student with being a self-regulated learner. Students being involved in the learning, but that second part is student expectations. So right now, with the beginning of the year data, are students aware of their performance? And more importantly, are they aware of the end of year goal, where we're trying to get them, engaging them in that process, allowing them to see why they're learning what they're learning and how critical it is. So what was the effect size for at least 1 year? 0.40. So notice 1.44 here. And then I start another responses to intervention. So just embedding those strategies using data and responding to what students are revealing as their need. Following that, we have formative evaluation. So those ongoing progress monitoring tools and methods. So not allowing students' instruction to get too far along before we're checking, did it work? I taught this, I measured this, I check, I give feedback, which is the next one, feedback, and I didn't start that one, but that one's critical. The metacognitive strategies, as we know, is what's going on in our mind, our thinking. Are students equipped with those strategies for decoding, or for going back to reread or using comprehension strategies to help them uncover meaning within the text? And then the final two is it's really the K-2 curriculum is built around direct instruction and phonics instruction. So you will receive this PowerPoint. You'll have it, I know some of you are capturing it, but if you already have John Hattie's visible learning text, all of them in the back, shows you a list of practices that have been proven to yield high growth, but also they're practices that may contribute to regression. So now Dr. Beasley is going to share with you how you can calculate your growth based on practices. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Lee. While Dr. Lee is pulling up the PowerPoint, I just want to make an observation. Dr. Lee and the team shared earlier, when she shared the percent of students who were reading on or above grade level, on average it was about 55%. I just kind of averaged the grades. On average, about 55% of kids in grades 3 through 8 performing on or above grade level in reading. That means they can actually read on or above grade level. But our proficiency rate is 25%, about 25% on average. So we've got 55% of our kids who can read on or above grade level, but only 25% of them that are proficient or higher. So there's a gap, isn't there? And so we want to always go back, as I often say to leaders, you always go back and you determine how are your actions impacting the outcomes. So we want to always go back to our actions and how they impact the outcomes. And so the purpose of this session, again, is for us to think about our actions, the information Vic just shared about reading. I think that is so amazing that we're wired to see, we're wired to speak, but we're not wired to read. Which means that in order for children to actually read, because the brain is very plastic, we have to actually train them on how to read. And over time, the brain builds the various connections for students to read. And the more because the brain is plastic, the more they do it, the better they become at it if they're reading and being challenged to go to the next level. So as Dr. Lee shared, Dr. Hattie Visible Learning Research has basically given us effect sizes. They looked at all these instructional practices and identified the ones that have the largest effect on outcomes in a positive way. So we thought we would just share with you all how do you measure your impact? And so we thought we'd find the spreadsheet that I've shared with others in my role of teaching and learning, to give you a tool for you to determine your effect on your outcomes. Two things you gotta have in order to do that. You gotta have a pre and a post something. So how many of you start out maybe pre-assessing your students? Let's say if you use the one test, pre-assess to see what they know. And then you may use that same test once you provide instruction to post-assess them, right? As long as you have a pre and a post, and I will say at least 20 students, you can determine your effect. And so we'll send this spreadsheet to you because all you got to do is plug in the pre and post and it will tell you what your effect is. The goal, as Dr. Lee said, is to get at least a minimum of .40. What did she say .40 was? 1 year's growth. But you can do a whole lot higher than .40. And so what I have here, if you would look at the top of this spreadsheet, you see where it says sample only and effect sizes? Do you all see that? It's kind of small. Dr. Lee will try to enlarge it for us. Just increase your size right there, Dr. Lee. There you go. You all see that? Now, under the effect sizes, you see that where it says Hattie 2009 for educational outcomes uses these effect sizes. D is equal to 0.2, it's small. That's a very small effect size. 0.4 is medium, that's about a year, as Dr. Lee suggested. And 0.6 is larger. So I want to encourage you to shoot for at least a minimum of .40 and higher in your effect. But remember, you got to have what two pieces of data? Pre and post, and for at least how many students? About 20 students. And most of you, I wish I couldn't say this, but most of you have at least 20 kids in your classroom, right? So it gives you the formula, but I don't want you, because I'm a mathematician, and some people just don't want to get into all of that. But we have the spreadsheet set up for you, so all you got to do is plug in the data, okay? And so this is what I did. I asked Vic, I said, Vic, give me the pre and post data for Dillons. So imagine the 7 schools in our district being my classroom. Does that make sense? So for every school, imagine every school being a student. I have student 1, school 1. I have pre-data, post. What data did I use? The percent of students who were performing at that blue category and high, or the green category and high. I did that for all the schools that Vic gave me data. That would be all the elementary schools, right? I did it for 2 grades. I did it for kindergarten, and I did it for 2nd grade. I have the other data, Vic, but I haven't had time to get to the other data. So, Dr. Lee, if you would scroll down on the spreadsheet, and I want them to see. You all see where I have the data here? I didn't list the schools because I didn't want you all to see the schools. I want you to see that I have what? Pre-data and what? That's the percent of students who are performing at that green level, at or above benchmark, right? So for the first school on row 31, what was the pre? What percent were performing when we started the year in August last year? What percent were performing at the benchmark or higher? 34%. And what percent did they end up in what grade was that? Kindergarten? 47%. I did the same thing for 2nd grade for that same school. So in 2nd grade, what percent started at benchmark or higher? And then at the end of the year, what percent was at benchmark or higher? Now, before I even analyze, something's wrong, right? Because should they be going in a positive direction? Should they be increasing? Yes. And see, that's what the question is, what impact, what effect did we have on student learning? And so I did this for all the data that Vic gave me for all the elementary schools. Everybody see that? Pre and post. Remember, you got to have pre and post at least 20. Because we had 30-something elementary schools, I was good. So once I plug it into the spreadsheet, now you can scroll back up just a little bit. Right here. Once I place it in the spreadsheet is calculated or formulated to calculate my effect size. So let's look at kindergarten. Notice you need the mean average. It gave me the mean average for pre and post data. And then it says average post minus average pre. It subtracts the 2. That's how I get 25.54. Everybody see that? You do the same thing. You get your standard deviation for your pre and your post. And then the average standard deviation, it calculates that. And then it calculates your effect size. Now notice this effect size is pretty large, isn't it? 2.4. That means our kindergarten teachers are slamming it with our kids. They are slamming it. That means no matter where our kids are beginning, wherever they begin, our kindergarten teachers are actually doing making quite a bit of progress. And our data suggests that, am I correct, Vic? That a lot of our kids may begin in the lower categories, but they don't end there. Any kindergarten teachers in here? Anybody? You're slamming, you're rocking. Remember, we want that number to be at a minimum. What number did Dr. Lee give us? 0.40. So anything above 0.40 is what we are shooting for here. Everybody hear that? So kindergarten teachers, keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing. I would love to see that effect size get even higher. That means the more kindergartners we can get moving out of those lower categories to at least benchmarking higher by the end of the year, by May, we'll see more increases in the effect size. Everybody follow me so far? Now let's go to second grade. I skipped first grade because I didn't get time to get to it. But second grade, I did the same calculation. What effect do you see right here? Negative 0.40. That means that after all, whatever happens in first grade, wherever they start in second grade, by the time our students finish with their second grade teachers, we have less where we need them to be than we should. That means they're regressing. So my question would be is, what are we doing in second grade collectively that we need to tweak, that we need to review, that we possibly need to change in order to improve the outcomes when students spend 180 days with us in second grade? So kindergarten, high effect size. Second grade, you can look at the scores too. Even if you don't know how to calculate the effect size, and the spreadsheet will do it for you, you can look at the scores and say something's wrong, can't you? Yeah. When you start at 47, but then you drop to 38, or when you start at 73, you drop to 69. It looks rather insignificant, but collectively, if you look at it like a classroom, and the group of schools would be our classroom in this situation, you can see, look at, you start at 65 and you drop to 48. That tells you something is what? Wrong. Why do we do this? Dr. Lee highlighted on one slide that one thing we've got to do is monitor our what? Progress. So it's not about anyone in particular. It's not about personalities or subjects. It's about the process. And we step back, look at the process, look at our instruction collectively, and figure out, okay, what do we need to do to tweak our instruction to make sure we're addressing, as Vic has shared, the various components of reading, providing the students the time that they need, and then using our data to inform our decisions in order to change the effect from a negative 0.4 to a positive what? 0.4. And so I share this because I want us to get in a habit. I want you as teachers to get in a habit of determining your effect on instruction. But just remember, you got to have a pre and a what? Pre and a post, and you got to have a sample of at least how many? 20. At least 20, and you can calculate your effect size. So, you say, how can I do this if I'm using a particular strategy? First of all, I would say, if you use a strategy, use a high yield strategy, one that has a high impact. Figure that out first. If I use a strategy, one that has a high impact. And then you plan for your instruction. You figure out how your students how they're doing on that content prior to your instruction. Get their pre-score right. And then you figure out how they're doing after you provide instruction and get their post-score. Place it into this spreadsheet for ease and convenience and calculate your effect. What you'll see is that the more you do that, you start becoming more conscientious of what you're doing, and you get better at the strategies that you're actually using that have a higher impact on outcomes. And it helps you to, if you will, quantitate your effect. So it takes it out of, oh, I wonder did I do okay with that? Well, all you got to do is look at your pre and your post data, analyze it, and figure out what your effect is. The goal is to get at least 0.40. That's really a step toward becoming a data-driven instructor. Does that make sense? So I want to encourage all of us, and that's why we're having this. I want us, I always believe in giving people tools to put in their toolbox, so when you go back into the classroom, you can figure out some things. Because there are many moving pieces in the classroom, many variables that are at play. But in spite of all those variables, at the end of the day, you want to know that you had a positive effect on student learning, don't you? And here's a tool that will help you be able to do that. And so Dr. Lee, when she sends the PowerPoint, we'll send that out. But look at the what we believe the approximate effect sizes and growth actually mean. 0.50 months across a 12-month period. 0.2, 9 months across a 12-month. 0.4 is, as Dr. Lee said, 12 months across a 12-month period. 1 and higher, 2 to 3 years growth. And that's good. We want to see that. We want to see at a minimum 0.4, and then of course anything 1 and higher would be great, as we saw with our kindergarten teachers, just using the data that we had, the pre and post Dibbles data that we had. So, you can also calculate the effect sizes for individuals. So I took the same data and I calculated the effect sizes for one school. I did a second grade school for second grade. Their post was 64, their pre was 56. They had a 0.80 effect size. And then I did one using the second grade data. They had a pre and a post of 38, a pre of 47. They had a negative what? Effect size. And so the question would be, and this is why your collaborative teams are so important, because you could do this for your class, but you could take, let's say, all the second graders and do the same thing if you all are using the same pre and post test to figure out, okay, collectively, what impact are we having on our students from pre to post? And then I think the most important thing is once you calculate it is you have some conversations about it. Okay, what worked for us? What do we think we could have done differently in order to improve the post-instructional outcomes? So, I'll pause here. Do you all think that would be a good tool for you to use? It's just a little a spreadsheet, but it will at least help raise your awareness of and at least give you a method of calculating your effect, your impact on your student learning. Okay? It takes it out of the nebula, out of the how I feel about it, and it gives you a quantity. It gives you a numerical value of your effect size. Okay? So, why do we do this? Dr. Lee shared the high impact practices. Vic shared the critical information relative to teaching reading and the importance of teaching reading. Specifically that our brains are not naturally wired for reading, which means that in order for our students to learn to read, the actions of the adults have to be very what? Intentional. Very intentional. And so, why? Why is it? So even though we have a few teachers in here, that's okay. We'll take this and y'all will be the stars and get them all on video. We let them know who came to the session. Because the more, I believe, the more we have these type of conversations, the more it's going to help inform our actions, and the more we'll be able to collaborate and start tweaking our own actions, our own practices towards improving the outcomes that we see every day in our classrooms. I would say to everybody, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to calculate your effect. Don't be afraid to figure out, okay, this is where we are pre, this is where we are post. Let's see how did we do? How did I do as a teacher? And then what am I going to do to improve it? If I use that same strategy, what can I do to improve it the next time I use it from pre to post? That's okay, because that's what we call being a reflective practitioner. We are practitioners. We're educators. We are practitioners. We are improving our practice. Why are we doing that? Realize that there are many variables that impact learning outcomes, but the most, according to Hattie and many others that have done research, the most important variable that impacts outcomes would be the variable of teacher what? Quality. Teacher impact. Teacher quality. And so I just want to encourage all of us. We know what our data says. Dr. Lee, go back to the screen where you have the little people. The green and red people. Don't let that scare you. By 2023, look at where we are. That's our reality, isn't it? That's okay. But I believe that through the right actions, through intentional, purposeful decisions, we can go from where we are today. Oh, you already there. That's where we are, our reality, right? And let's go to where we want to go. And that's you can go there. But you gotta be intentional, as you said, about your practices, right? Be intentional about who are your students. Like, we have data for the most part. You have your DIBELS data, right? You know who they are right now. If they are at or above benchmark, what do you got to do with those kids? Keep them where? At or above benchmark. But if they're not, then you got to somehow dig into that information that Vic has shared with us about teaching reading, and week to week, day to day, month to month, you got to move those kids. Move those kids very intentionally. So, I wish I could get in every classroom and help you do it. I don't think I would do a better job, because it would just help just to have somebody in there to help you do it, wouldn't it? But I want to encourage you to continue to work on as teams, because it's amazing. While the kids are different, oftentimes they have many of the same what? Challenges. And oftentimes what works for one group of kids, if they have similar challenges, will do what? Work for another group of kids. Our goal in our district is to remove the episodal lack of the lack of consistency. We've got you over here who's at a 0.90 effect in, let's say, second grade. Then you got your colleague over here who's at a 0.20 effect. By the time they get to third grade got to deal with the kids who are from the 0.90 effect teacher, right? But they also got to teach the kids from the what? 0.20 effect, and then with all of that, they got to create their own what? Their own effect. And that can be complicated. That's not necessarily easy work. But if we start making our decisions based upon our data, I think that helps us to move closer to achieving higher levels of effectiveness than we would otherwise achieve. Okay? So let's pause here to see if you have any questions, and just shoot them at us if you have questions. Was this information helpful to you? Yes. Was it? We'll send this to you all, but I want you to, don't be afraid to use the spreadsheet. Use it, and we'll make sure we have some clear instructions with it. But all you got to do is plug in your data, and it calculates everything you need, your pre and post data. You don't have to worry about how many. If you have more than 20, it's going to calculate it for you, okay? But be intentional. Look at your DIBELS data right now and figure out, okay, where is every student? Your grouping is important, isn't it? Providing those students the opportunity to read, level books, right? That would be important. Everything you do is important. Remember, every decision has to be intentional, because that's how you improve your effect and you increase your impact. We're good? Any questions? Y'all good? All right. Well, y'all are our first class, and we'll get this information sent to everyone. We'll have, 2 more classes on which day? Thursday? Wednesday, we'll have 2 more classes. But we want you all to start using the tools and sharing the information. But we'll get this out to everybody. And it's really about, as a school system, us improving our impact. Does that make sense? And the more of us that understand this, and more of us collaborate and use the high impact practices, then we'll collectively improve our what? Our impact. And we don't have to be satisfied and think that only 25% of our kids can be proficient, or only 55% can read on or above grade level. We can achieve that 100% on or above grade level. We've got to believe it, and if we believe it, we've got to know what actions we're taking in order to what? To achieve it. And it will happen. It may not happen in 1 year, that's okay. But are we moving in the right what? Direction. And the more kids and we'll build momentum, the more kids we get reading on or above grade level, guess what? The more kids will read on or above grade level, the more we'll be proficient as we continue to work on instruction, and we'll achieve and exceed the goals before we even realize it. Now, do y'all believe that? Yes. Do y'all? You should, because we can do it. I can look at the kindergarten teachers and know we can do it. Their data encourages me. Because oftentimes those kids hadn't been to school at all. And look at the progress they make. Somebody say, well, they have a para too. Well, that could be a point. That could be a point. Can't give everybody a para right now. But that could be a point. But look at the progress that they make. So the kindergarten teachers should encourage us. So after they've been in school for 1 year, clearly we should be able to continue to build on their success and amplify or increase that success. Everybody good? All right. Anything else, Dr. Lee?
No, I thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. And I think one of the key
Words that Dr. Beasley mentioned is collaboration, because the work is tremendous, and it does require not only collaborating in the school, but you have your community partners to get books in the hands of our students, educating our parents on just what this, let's say, Dibble score means and where the goal is and why I need little Johnny reading 20 minutes every night. So just really reaching out to extend the impact to bring in more partners. So again, thank you so much, and thank you to the team for being here. Thank you so much for being here as well. Give yourselves a hand, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Communications Department, for helping to organize this event. And we'll see everybody Wednesday. Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Thanks,
Beasley.
everybody.